This is fucking awkward. It's windy and recently snowed in Maryland, which is kind of ironic because it kind of reminds me of my childhood growing up in Denver, which kind of goes in line with this video. Today we're going to be talking about lessons that I learned from growing up poor. Before I dive into the lessons, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not making this video to tell you that just because I made it out of poverty, you can too. I realize that the system is kind of rigged due to the current state of market, the economy, as well as current policies. It's extremely difficult to get out of poverty. I'm not making this video to say that I made it out, so can you. I'm also not selling a course where I'm making you refer other friends to make money or any of that bullshit, like those pyramid schemes that you see rampant on YouTube. So I just want to say that the whole point is you're gonna have to do everything possible to increase your life just by a little bit. Whether you make it out or not, it's not the most important part. It's about where you started and where you end up. If you make a 10 to 20% increase in the betterment of your life, that's all that matters. Also, stay tuned because I'm gonna make an unpretentious review of Open Little Bay later on this video. So the first lesson is probably the hardest. It's something that I still struggle with to this day, and I've struggled with it for the longest time. I think Skizzy Mars said it best. Nobody can blame you if you're born broke. If you die broke, then that's your fault. Lesson 1. You can't blame yourself for growing up poor. Growing up poor, I thought it was a curse. I thought I was sent as a punishment of God because abject poverty is one of the hardest things you have to go through. You struggle with your mental health, physical health, you don't have the opportunities. And I think envy was the biggest sin that I experienced. It's this feeling that why do other people have more than me? And it was almost like rubbing in your face of like, haha, fuck you. You have nothing while other people have everything. And I realized it was gonna take me a really long time to get out of it. It was gonna take luck, hard work, good networking, and most importantly, time. And it sucks because when you're a kid, you need money to have a childhood. So I realized that you need to sacrifice this time in order to get to the next step. And that was something I really hated. That was gonna take time. There's nothing I could do until the future. But I think that's the most important thing is realizing that you can't put that blame on yourself. It's not your fault. If anything, it's maybe your parents' fault. Understand mistakes happen, environmental reasons, sometimes people just have kids, someone gets pregnant, and everyone's not in a fortunate position enough to have a financial backbone before giving their kids the best life. It was your parents' decision and God's will that brought you into the universe, and sometimes you have to contemplate that and come to your own conclusion. I want to say that's not your fault. If you die broke, yeah, understand. Sometimes things are harder than they are. Trying to get out of poverty is going to be hard. Not everyone's going to make it. I'm not saying you have to get rich, but at least you can break into the middle class, and that's better than where you started. Okay, the next lesson probably took me the longest time to realize, and that was dropping dead weight. Okay, but before we get into it, we're going to need to walk to my favorite spot, which will take a little hike, which is all the way down there somewhere. I hate to be that asshole blocking the sidewalk, but it's for a good cause. Dropping dead weight was something extremely difficult for me to understand. It meant that the people I was involved with, my friendships, my relationships, I had to let them go. And these were quote unquote people who had my back since day one. I realized that as I leveled up, changed my habits, healthier habits, they were dragging me down. It was almost like crabs in a bucket who didn't want to see you go, so they continually try to drag you down. I realized that it changed my environment, my friendships and everything, and that it was time to let go. And that was really hard because I quote unquote thought these were healthy relationships. As I look back now, they no longer served me and they weren't that healthy. But it's not like I didn't try to help them. I did everything my personal will. I gave them money, resources, books. It's just almost like they couldn't level up, nor did they want to. They didn't think it was possible or attainable, and it was almost like they lacked the personal will to get through it. They just had so many bad habits that they couldn't kick. And even though I tried to rescue and save them, to bring people from day one to rise with me, it's not my decision. It was theirs. It was my decision to let them go. The next lesson's kind of funny, and that was staying single. This is something that I really hated. The girls I was seeing back in the day, sleeping around, hooking up, having fun, none of them just were the quality that made a good partner. And I'm not gonna say I was perfect. I definitely was not in the perfect state of mind to be responsible for a relationship. And I've seen so many of my friends make big mistakes when they got involved with the wrong person, because realize mistakes happen when you're young and dumb. Someone gets pregnant and now you have to feed not only yourself, your kid that's on the way, and the girl you're seeing, and they have like baby mamas and all that fun stuff, and the amount of responsibility that they've been tasked with is insurmountable. It takes a lot of work, effort, luck. I realized that I should probably stay single because then I have the money to build the relationships that I want. And I realized that the energy that I had needed to be placed in a more important area of my life, and that was self-improvement, so I could continually grow, get educated, get better job opportunities, and improve my life circumstances. I couldn't be responsible for other people. And no matter how hard I try to get in a relationship, it's almost like divine intervention. Like God came in and was like, no, dude, not gonna happen. So I never really had my first relationship until I went to college, which is kind of ironic. And I'm really thankful for that because that gave me the time to sit down, just explore, be introspective, and determine what's possible, and dream, realize where do I want to end up in 10 years. Versus if I got serious, settled down with a girl, I don't think I'd be in the position that I'd be in, because the amount of focus and attention I'd have to dedicate into this relationship that I didn't necessarily want, or mistakes, or raising a kid by accident, I placed that on myself. I spent a lot of time reading books, watching YouTube, right? Before YouTube, self-development was huge. YouTube was my biggest source of inspiration. I realized that I could go online and find a life that I wanted and realize that it was possible. YouTube gave me the insight that I didn't have in my life. It gave me inspiration that I realized, like, wait, there's a life outside of my immediate surroundings. And the more imaginative and creative I got, there's a big chance of reaching that. That gave me something that was possible. I realized that other people were living a life that I kind of wanted, or I kind of wanted to mimic or customize. And I was like, I don't have to be stuck in Denver, Colorado for the rest of my life. If I wanted to move out, I could. And YouTube was the biggest source of inspiration. And staying single was huge in that, because I realized that if I want to be the man I wanted, I can't give my time to a relationship or a girl right now. There were more important factors in my life that I take care of, like my mom, my brother, and myself. But I realized that I had to put everything on myself, and that it was gonna be okay, and I can get a relationship later on in my life. As long as I learned social skills and stuff like that, which I did. I learned through the course of development of what it means to be a man, right? Developing friendships, relationships, and social skills eventually became really easy for me. But that's because I was able to focus. Focus was the number one factor to my success, and lack of liabilities. Okay, I wanna film like one more thing before I actually end up going back home because it's freezing outside. The next lesson is time's gonna be your best friend and worst enemy. This is kind of ironic. No matter how much time's gonna pass, your life will either greatly improve or greatly decrease. What you do now will determine your future. If you spend the rest of your life messing around, that's gonna catch up. Versus if you work extremely hard, it's gonna take a great amount of time to kind of change your life. But as long as you keep pushing and aim for the stars, I truly believe that if you end up in the tree line, at least you end up in the middle class versus extremely rich. Anything that you do now will be better than where you started. And understand that. And time is something that's really difficult because I'm a really impatient motherfucker, because you'll keep working, you don't see the results immediately. It's gonna take some time and it'll slowly reveal itself. But once it does, oh boy, will you be happy. Okay, so now we're gonna have to walk all the way back because it's freezing and we had a giant snowstorm, and I'm gonna be walking and we're gonna drink some whiskey and hopefully Hadley will be back by then. Okay, so I made it back. It's time to warm up and decide what whiskey I will drink. Okay, I made it back, so I'm gonna grab a glass. Ooh. Okay, time to grab a whiskey. So here is my whiskey selection. I have a ton of bourbons and some scotches over here. We are going to go for, bam, Oban Little Bay. This was given to me by my boss. Delayed gratification had to become my best friend, because no matter what I did, it was going to take an immense amount of time to get out of poverty or whatever. And I had to understand that no matter what I did, immediately it wasn't going to have an effect. It's going to take some time and all that fun stuff to get over it. The only thing that I could mention to myself back then was to just embrace the suck and understand that time is temporary. No matter how difficult my situations I lived in, it was not going to be forever. It was going to be for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But if I was still in that position, let's say 10 years later, I would have some real issues because I never achieved my goals, but it was always temporary. And that's something that's really difficult to tell myself when I was really young, especially young people, because we want it now. So I couldn't get the last candle, so let's see if we can get the last wick. Okay,
and I asked for a very long time. Never I cease, I get better like wine. Soul searching, found me online. No end of my reach, got a hand on the skies. Stop being so emotional, what you smoking on? About time I open up, you can't roll with us.
So I get little hints of pretentiousness. I get some country club and some good nepotism in there. No, but all jokes aside, this is a fantastic single malt scotch. It is a small cask from the West Highlands. It's absolutely phenomenal. So pretty much small cask means it's from many barrels. It's kind of deceptive because small cask can include up to 250 barrels versus a single barrel is the absolute best, and it is from one barrel. It's usually the best barrel, and it's really hard to replicate. So I actually get hints of peat, and that means it's smoky. So peat is organic decaying matter that's used to smoke the barley with it, so it imparts that flavor to it. And I get hints of cedar, oak, and some fruit as well. And I do get some like maple. I know it sounds kind of pretentious and stuff, but this was introduced to me by my really good friend Josh, who's a cardiothoracic surgeon, who gave me a bottle. And this kind of gave me the motivation and inspiration to keep diving the world of whiskeys. And for the longest time, I kind of tasted alcohol and everything was burnt and tasted the same. But over time, it's a decadent flavor. It's an amazing thing, and it brings people together. I remember sharing my dreams and passions with like a coworker at this internship I was working at a bone bank. It was like a place where like I was like shipping out bone grafts from the freezer to hospitals and all this stuff. And that guy said, hey man, like you're gonna be overqualified, you're doing this psychology degree at Cal Poly, you should just work at a good nonprofit like this, make 40K, work here for 40 years and you might get a good pension. And it's sad because you share these dreams hoping other people support you, but most of the time they try to drag you down and talk you out of it because it kind of puts a spotlight on their shitty life. And I'd say be careful who you share your dreams with. And that's why I want to say, like, be absolutely unrealistic. Realize that your immediate environment, you're going to have to network out of it, because if you want to break out of poverty, you need some good mentors or friends that'll give you opportunities. I'm not saying you have to judge a book by its cover and realize that money is everything, but sometimes you have to elevate and get knowledge that's outside your environment because you have to get a different perspective. People who are financially astute don't have the same worries or anxieties that you have. They don't worry about where their next hot meal is going to be, where they're going to sleep for the night, and all this fun stuff, because they'll give you a fresh perspective where they can just see things objectively. So I made it my mission to kind of network out, to meet as many people as possible, just to say hi and kind of be honest and realize that there will be some hidden gems out there, but there will be a lot of haters. And that's just the sad part that I realized was not everyone wants to see you successful, so don't settle, keep pushing the boundary. You come to a place of like, am I happy with this? And you keep going and going and going. And one final lesson that I do want to say that I failed to even acknowledge, and I sucked at it. I couldn't really appreciate it until now. So if you don't listen to me, that's completely okay, because I wouldn't even listen to myself, or the person that gave me this words of advice was enjoy the struggle. And that's really difficult because you're saying this struggle fucking sucks. Okay, I want to get out of here. I want to do something amazing. And as I look back on my life now, there's some parts that I wouldn't say I miss, but there are some things I would have done differently. That was just spend more time with my mom and brother. Because as I continually leveled up, went to college, got a big consulting job after school, started my own business, all this stuff. They live in Colorado. So that family time is really difficult to come by. And I'll see them for a week or two out of the entire year, which is very different from back then where I was seeing them every day. And I try to do everything possible to kind of get away from home because that was a source of anxiety and stuff like that. But I do kind of miss that time where I could just come home and just talk to them and see them. I want to say enjoying the struggle is a good thing, but it does give you perspective to realize like this is a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I wasn't really present for that part of my life, and I failed at that. And that's maybe okay, because this part of my life sucks, and I'm just gonna forget about it and be future oriented, future focused, and then I'll enjoy my life, which is an okay thing, because it's a defense mechanism. You learn, you change, and you kind of forget the hardships of life. But then once you reach that quote unquote pinnacle or comfortable area of your life, you have to say, what do I actually enjoy? And it's gonna be really difficult to be present to the moment. And that's something I struggle with to this day. Okay, conclusion. I originally made like a huge list of like 10 things, 10 lessons, 20 things, but these few lessons were probably the ones that kind of stood out the most to me, and I really hope you guys find some value out of this. I'd also like to add that at the end of the day, it's your sole responsibility where you end up in life, and I know that answer sucks. You can wait for society to change, the government, but it'll take forever. And that sole responsibility, that burden is on you. As long as you put the work in, your life will substantially increase. I'm not going to guarantee you'll get rich, but it's better than where you started. Even if it's a 2 to 5% change, it's absolutely better than where you started. And I wish I had better answers, but I'm just sharing my lessons from my life.